Hi everyone. Hope you all are good. We are here for grade 9 math. You can find all the lessons on aplusstudents.com. You have to log in there using your email address and password as provided by the administrator. Then you have to select math from the subject tab. Scroll down to grade 9 math and then click on view all lessons. There you can find the list of the chapters. We're going to start with the chapter radical expressions. The lessons we're going to cover today are simplify radical expressions, simplify radical expressions involving fractions, add and subtract radical expressions, multiply radical expressions. So please make sure you have your notebook and pencil so that you can note down the important examples and definitions as well. Here I am on grade 9 math. Let's just start with the first lesson, that is simplify radical expressions. Square root 18. To simplify the radical expression, factor out the perfect squares that are under the radical. So you can write 18 as 2 times 3 times 3, right? 2 times 3 is 6 and 6 times 3 is 18. So that would be 3 square times 2, right? So 3 square, square and square root got cancelled and you are left with 3 square root t. 3 square root, right? So that means you can simplify square root 18 to 3 square root 2. Got it? Let's just start with the test questions. Simplify 126 U10 V10, right? So let's just see how do we simplify 126, right? Three times, wait, that would be 3 times 3 times 14. Yes, that is 3 times 3 times 14, and you can write them as V5 U5 exponent 2. So you can write it as 3 square U5 V5 exponent 2 and square root 14. So 2 square root cancel out, 2 square root cancel out. You are left with 3 U5 V5 square root 14. Got it? So the correct option is option number 2 is the correct option. That is option number 2 is the correct option, right? Okay, the next one is 2 square root 147 y square z square. So 147, right? So 100, you can write 147 as 7 times 7 times 3. 7 times 7 times 3 y square and z square. So you can write then 7 as 7 square, y square, z square, and square root 3. You already have 2 here, right? So that would be 2. And 2 square root cancel out. You're left with 7 y, z, and square root 3. So that is 14 y, z, square root 3. The correct option is option number 2. That is 14 y, z, square root 3. Option number 2 is the correct option. Option number 2 is the correct option. That is 3 square root 20 b7. So which is the correct option? The correct option is option number 1 is the correct option. That is 6b cube and square root 5b. Option number 1 is the correct option. Simplify 3 square root 20 m5. So which is the correct option? So which is the correct option? That is 6m square and square root 5m. The correct option is option number 1. That is 6m square and square root 5m. Option number 1 is the correct option. Simplify square root 45b square, which is the correct option. The correct option is option number 2 is the correct option, right? 3b and square root 5. Option number 2 is the correct option. Square root 12b cube, which is the correct option? The correct option is option number 2 is the correct option, right? That is 2b and square root 3b. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is simplify radical expressions involving fractions. So let's just start with the next lesson, that is simplify 9 over 25 square root, right? So the square root is the for both numerator and denominator. Let's just write down their prime factors. You have to do 3 times 3 is 9 and 5 times 5 is 25. So 2 and square root cancel out. So you are left with 3 by 5. The correct option is 3 by 5. Let's just start with the test questions. Let's see how do we evaluate expressions involving fractions. Square root 10 over 9. So which is the correct option? You can write it like this, right? So the correct option is square root 10 divided by 3. Option number 2 is the correct option. That is square root 10 over 3. Option number 2 is the correct option. Got it? Simplify. Square root 25 divided by 4. Which is the correct option? 5 times 5 divided by 2 times 2. So which is the correct option? So you can write it as 5 square divided by 2 square. That is 5 over 2. Option number 2 is the correct option. The correct option is option number 2 is the correct option. Simplify square root 9 over 25, which is the correct option. The correct option is option number 2 is the correct option, right? That is 3 over 5. That is square root 10 over 3. Option number 1 is the correct option. Square root 9 over 4, which is the correct option. That is, but you are not given with the correct option. That would be 3 by 2. Because 9 is the square of 3 and 4 is the square of 2, so it must be 3 over 2. But you are not given with the correct option, right? Let's just select any of them. Square root 4 over 9, so which is the correct option? That is 2 over 3. Option number 2 is the correct option, right? Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to next lesson. Let's just start with the next lesson, that is add and subtract radical expressions. Subtract negative 2 square root 5 minus 9 square root 5. So negative square root 5, you can see square root 5 as variable x, right? So you can take square root 5 common. You have negative 2 minus 9, right? So minus 2 minus 9 is minus 11. That is minus 11 square root 5. The correct option is negative 11 square root 5, right? Let's just start with the test questions. Add 4 square root 3 plus 5 square root 3. So just take common square root 3 from here and you are left with 4 plus 5. So 4 plus 5 is 9. That would be 9 square root 3. The correct option is option number 1 is the correct option. 3 square root 2 minus 5 square root 2. Which is the correct option? The correct option is take square root 2 common. You are left with 3 minus 5. That is negative 2 square root 2. Option number 2 is the correct option. Add negative 8 square root 3 plus 2 square root 3. The correct option is That is negative 6 square root 3. Option number 2 is the correct option. Five square root 5 minus 4 root square root 5. So which is the correct option? The correct option is the correct option is square root 5. Option number 1 is the correct option. Minus 8 square root 2 plus 6 square root 2, which is the correct option? The correct option is negative 2 square root 2. Option number 2 is the correct option. Negative 4 square root 5 minus 3 square root 5, which is the correct option? That is minus 7 square root 5. Okay, let's just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is multiply radical expressions. Multiply square root 3 times square root 6. The multiplication property of square root state that square root AB equals square root A times square root B. Right? So that means you can multiply them. So you can write it as square root 3 times square root 6. So make the prime factors of both the numbers. You can write square root 6 as 2 times 3. So 3 times 3 you can write in square form. So that would be 3 square root 2. Basically you have to simplify them, right? Let's just start with the test questions. Square root 2 square. So square and square root are opposite to each other. They cancel out each other. We are left with the correct option is option number 2, that is 2. Multiply square root 3 times square root 15. So let's just write them down their prime factors. That is square root 3. You can write it as 3 times 5. So then you can write them as 3 times 5 and 3 square times square root 5. That is 3 square root 5. The correct option is 3 square root 5. That is 3 square root 5. Option number 2 is the correct option. Square root 3 times square root 6, which is the correct option. The correct option is 3 square root 2. Option number 2 is the correct option. Square root 3 times square root 2, which is the correct option. Square root 6 it is. Option number 1 is the correct option. Square root 10 square. Option number 2 is the correct option. Square root 5 square. Option number 1 is the correct option. 5 it is. Square root 5 times square root 10, which is the correct option. Five square root 2. Option number 2 is the correct option. Square root 5 square. Option number 1 is the correct option. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. So we were working on grade 9 math. Chapter we were working on is simplify radical expressions. The lessons we have covered today are simplify radical expressions, simplify radical expressions involving fractions, add and subtract radical expressions, multiply radical expressions. So please make sure before the next session you can complete all the practice questions for the lessons we just did session. So if you need more help with any of the lesson, you can say click on the live chat button. Tutors are available there to help you. Or either you can write down the question in the chat box. I am here to answer all your questions and confusions if you have any. Any questions? No questions? Okay, then that's all for today. See you in the next session. Bye, everyone.